The bullet that shattered her world tore through the crisp Montana dawn. Emily Carter found her father sprawled in the dusty yard of their ranch, blood pooling beneath him like spilled ink on the hard-packed earth. His dreams of carving out a legacy in this unforgiving big sky country bled out with him. Vince Harlan had pumped 2 shots into his back and vanished with a herd of prime horses, as if John Carter's life was worth less than the dust on his boots. She was 22, with the kind of fierce beauty that turned heads in Frontier, town's raven hair that gleamed under the sun, eyes sharp as a hawk's, and a figure that made ranch hands stumble over their words. But her spirit was forged in fire, cold and unyielding. The sheriff wouldn't chase into the wild Badlands. Her brothers begged her to stay put and grieve like a proper lady. The world wanted her to fold, but Emily Carter didn't break easily. What happens when a woman grabs the reins of her own fate in a man's brutal world? Buckle up, this ride's about to get rough. She tracked down Buck Riley in a dingy bar in Billings, where the air reeked of cheap bourbon and bad decisions. He was nursing a drink at a poker table, surrounded by roughnecks who'd slit your throat for a pair of aces. At 50, he looked worn as weathered leather-salt tan-pepper beard, a scarred eye from some long-forgotten brawl, hands that had ended more lives than he admitted. As a former U.S. Marshal, his name carried weight like a loaded rifle. Folks whispered he'd dropped a dozen outlaws in his prime. No questions asked. "I need you to hunt Vince Harlan," Emily said, tossing a pouch of gold coins onto the table. Riley didn't glance up from his cards. "This ain't no game for a young lady." "I'm no lady," she snapped, her voice slicing through the haze like a knife. "I'm a woman with gold and a murdered pa. Which grabs you more?" Now he looked, his good eye roaming from her determined face down the fitted lines of her blouse, noting the way it clung just right. The other players shifted uneasily, sensing the spark in the air. "Vince Harlan shot John Carter dead 4 days back," she pressed on. "Stole our horses and headed for the Badlands. Local law says it's federal land. Too risky." "Smart lawman," Riley grunted, downing his shot. "The Badlands will chew you up full of bandits, wolves, and worse. Then you're the man for it." A grin tugged at his lip. "Respect, maybe, or intrigue. You've got grit, I'll say that. But this ain't ladies' work. My pa taught me to handle a Winchester before I could bake bread," she replied, parting her jacket to reveal the revolver at her side. "And I bake just fine." The bar fell silent. Eyes on the armed woman in 1892, a powder keg waiting to blow. Riley saw echoes of his lost daughter in her fire lily, taken by fever 3 years back, same unyielding jaw. $200, he said at last. "Half now, half when Harlan's in the ground. You follow my lead. 150, and we drag him back for trial. Dead's too easy." He chuckled, teeth stained from tobacco. "Miss, you might just make it out alive." But as she counted the coins, neither noticed the figure slipping out the door. News spread like wildfire in these parts. By dawn, Vince Harlan would know hunters were on his trail, and he'd be locked and loaded. They crossed the Yellowstone River at first light, the ferry creaking under their mounts and gear. Emily swapped her skirt for rugged jeans that hugged her legs and a flannel shirt that did little to hide her form. Riley tried to ignore it, but failed miserably. "Second thoughts?" he asked as the Badlands loomed jagged canyons and endless prairies promising death. "I don't do second thoughts, Marshal." The land was a beast. Vast grasslands dotted with buttes, rivers running swift and cold. Somewhere in that maze hid men who'd kill for a canteen. They camped by a stream under a starlit sky, the water shimmering like scattered diamonds. Emily watched Riley tend the horses with unexpected care, his rough hands gentle on their hides. "You ever have kin?" she asked, poking the fire. "Wife. Son." His voice was gravelly. "What happened?" "Pneumonia gun both. Should have been me." She edged closer, the flames warming her face. He caught her scent soap, saddle leather, and pure woman that stirred something deep. My pa always said the toughest part of loss is the empty spot left behind. Your pa knew his stuff. Smart enough to raise a daughter who could hold her own. She locked eyes with him over the glow, even if it means she becomes something no man can tame. Her tone, low and inviting, hit him like a gut punch. She was stunning in the firelight, a loaded pistol of temptation, half his age. Wanting her was all kinds of wrong, but it burned like wildfire. We need rest, he muttered, turning away before desire won out. But in his bedroll, hearing her soft breaths, Buck Riley knew trouble brewed deeper than any outlaw. This woman had burrowed into him, and ignoring it only drove it further. For days in, they stumbled on the first corpses stew wranglers gutted and robbed by a dry gulch, buzzards circling. Horses and rifles gone. Sue, Emily whispered, steadying her voice. Could be, or fakers. Riley had the boot prints. Shot, not arrows. Harlan's work, or his gang. As if on cue, a shot rang from the ridge, grazing Emily's hat. Riley shoved her down, his body shielding hers. For a heartbeat, they were fused her softness against his strength, breath hot on his neck, hearts pounding in sync. Her fear mixed with that intoxicating scent, making him ache to hold on forever. Cover, he hissed. They scrambled the boulders as bullets chipped stone. He fired back blindly. She drew her piece, hands rock steady. How many? 4 at least. She was no fragile, flower-facing death like a pro. In that chaos, Riley felt a shift. She wasn't just a client. She was his equal, his partner. But with killers closing in, the partnership might not save them. They bolted through a hailstorm that turned trails to sludge, holing up in a cavern reeking of old smoke and desperation. Emily shivered, soaked, her shirt translucent against her curves. Riley built a fire, averting his eyes failing. You're freezing. He draped his coat over her. It smelled of him. Gun oil sweat, man. She pulled it close, a flutter in her gut. Thanks. They sat near, knees brushing. Thunder roared outside, but inside, firelight danced on her skin like a siren's call. Tell me about your wife, she said softly. Anna. Met her at a barn dance in Kansas, pre-war. Her smile could light the darkest night. Did you love her? Married her, didn't I? That's not love. She met his gaze. I've seen men's eyes on the hunger, not affection. And yours. They're different. The air crackled. His pulse raced. This wasn't the quiet love he'd known. This was raw, forbidden fire. Emily, you're young. I'm grown. She leaned in, eyes gleaming. I see how you fight it, how you want me to spite yourself. His fingers grazed her cheek velvet soft. She pressed into it. This is trouble. Trouble's all we've got. He kissed her, fierce and desperate. She tasted of storm and sin, her lips parting, tongue meeting his in a blaze. His hands worked her buttons. She tugged at his belt. Firelight gilded her bare, skin-full breasts, wild hair. He laid her on his bedroll, mouth trailing her throat, her gasps fueling the inferno. But hoofbeats echoed through the rain. Riley snatched his gun, dousing the fire. Dress now. Voices outside. Saw the glow. Boss wants the girl alive. Terror iced her veins. They'd been trailed. Vince Harlan lurked in the dark, plotting horrors. They sneaked out a rear fissure, guiding horses through slick rocks. But Harlan's crew knew the land. By morning, they were pinned at a ravine crossing. Bullets whizzed like angry bees. Riley's mount bucked, dumping him in the dirt. Surrender the woman, Marshall, a voice bellowed. Vince's plans for her. Emily hunkered behind logs, with splintering. Seek Zofing. Outgunned as usual. He grinned through pain. Center mass, double tap. Don't you see Azme? She wasn't naive anymore. The cave had forged them into something unbreakable, charged with unspoken promises. The assault hit from all sides. Emily dropped the lead attacker, his fall a grim thrill that chilled her soul. Riley fought like a demon, but numbers overwhelmed him. A slug tore his arm. He staggered. Then Vince Harlan emerged slight, unremarkable, eyes dead as a shark's. Emily Carter. You been a thorn. Her hand shook on the trigger. You murder my pa. He drew first. Self-defense. In the back. Coward. He smirked. Turn your back. That's on you. The callousness enraged her. This worm had stolen her world. Touch her. You die slow, Riley growled, swaying. Harlan's gun shifted and Emily fired. The shot punched his chest. He crumpled, surprise etched on his face, body tumbling into the stream. Silence blanketed the scene. Emily stared at the corpse, emptiness swallowing her rage. Vengeance hadn't healed. It had stained her hands. Harlan's men fled like rats. Riley bled out fast. Emily hoisted him onto her horse, arms locked around him, their closeness a bittersweet ache after the cave's near miss. Docks in a mining camp, day north, he rasped. They rode wordless, her body molded to his. What now? The cave's fire lingered, a bond beyond words. They reached the camp with Riley fading. The doc dug out the bullet, sewing him up through the night. Emily stayed vigilant. When he woke days later, she sat by the window, sunset gilding the plains. You didn't leave. Where to? Home's empty. He winced, sitting up. You could settle down, husband, kids, normal life. She turned, eyes calm. Normal's not for me. A smile broke through, real and warm. Herd of land, east, good soil, river access. Needs a strong hand. Partner. Could be. He gazed at this fierce woman who'd slain a killer and saved him. Hope blooming. They'd lost innocence in the Badlands, but gained something solid, a future built on scars and strength. As the wind whispered through the grass, carrying scents of pine and promise, they knew redemption waited for those who fought for it. Together, they'd tame what lay ahead. What did you think of Emily's journey? Was her vengeance justified, but did it cross a line? Share your take in the comments. Agree, disagree, let's debate it. Your thoughts keep these stories alive.